Yes, perfect. Alrighty, welcome everyone. Thank you all for being here this evening on this rainy day. Hopefully the Wi-Fi doesn't go out, but thank you all for being here today for the College and Career Readiness Orientation. Alrighty, so I am Brenda, the College and Career Readiness Coordinator. Alrighty, so Malinka Cornell Sammy, she's out on vacation this week, but she is the Assistant Director of Resident Services for AHC. And fun fact, she's actually the founder of AHC's College and Career Readiness Program. She started this program back in 2016, and back then there were 16 students. Laura?
Yes, so I am the volunteer coordinator. I support the College and Career Readiness Program and then all of the other centers in Arlington that have education programs. And many of you have volunteered in those, so thank you. And then we also have some food distribution programs where we have volunteers. So you'll hear from me repeatedly asking for your help and spreading the word about AHC. And I'm also a point of contact for you if you have questions.
And I'm Brenda Quintanilla, the College and Career Readiness Coordinator. I manage this program we are in the hiring process for one other staff member. So there's usually 2 people running this program. We oversee the CCR program, work with the teens, and then with the mentors. And fun fact too, I was actually a former CCR student. When Malinka started the program, I was actually one of her first students in the 2016 cohort. Alrighty, College and Career Readiness Program. So our mission is to help juniors and seniors in high school transition successfully into their next step. For most of our students, that's going off to college. Our students either go off to Nova, which is a 2-year school, or a 4-year university. But that doesn't mean that's the only path for our students. Our students sometimes need to take a gap year, go straight into the workforce. We help them with that, or they do take the path of the military path. So we do provide support on that as well. A few stats from last year, the class of 2022-2023, we had 37 graduating seniors. We had our first AHC student athlete. He's going off to Bridgewater on a full ride scholarship. And out of the 257 college applications submitted, 156 were accepted. And we had a record-breaking last year with $13.3 million in scholarships and gift aid. That's about double from previous years. So our students, a majority of our students live in AHC properties, and most of them, if not all of them, are low-income first-generation students. We do have students that are either undocumented or have family members that are, without status. And we'd like to stress the importance that our students not only have academic responsibility, whether it's taking rigorous courses, after school activity, they participate in after school activities, but they also have responsibilities at home, whether it's taking care of a sibling, taking care of the home, or they have to work. So our students are pretty busy. And Laura is going to talk a little bit about future trainings and that we'll have this fall.
So I have had the opportunity to do several trainings over this last year. One is called Undocu Allies. So it's done by George Mason, but it's college students who are undocumented and how to support them. And their training was really good, had some basic information and more. So I will send around those training dates for everybody. And then some other trainings were around trauma-informed care and ways to support immigrant youth. So whether they're documented, undocumented or not. And so I will be having a training around those topics in the fall. And then also I'll share the GMU dates with you for those trainings.
Project discovery. So I will warn you guys, throughout the school year, we will mention PD, Project Discovery. Project Discovery is a state-funded program whose mission is to provide first-generation college-eligible students opportunity to a higher education. So in other words, Project Discovery, they basically provide funds for our program to happen. They believe that hardworking and high-achieving students should not be deprived of an opportunity to attend college. And with Project Discovery, we do have to submit a few applications and do a few workshops and activities. And I'll talk about that in this slide. So we started this, Project Discovery started this last year, Touch Points. A few mentors may have heard of this, but it's going to be a little bit stricter now this year in the sense that all students need to complete 12 of these activities. I know looking at all these two images, it can be a little bit daunting, but do note students do not need to complete all of these activities. They need to complete 12 activities by the end of the school year. For example, most of these activities will, I will facilitate a workshop or have an outside organization or a university staff member come out and facilitate a workshop. But let's say you and your mentee decide to meet at the public library and talk about scholarships. Scholarships. That would count as a touch point. And it's really important that mentors submit their hours. That way I can track what you guys have completed, what you guys have talked about. So this can be checked off for that student. And we'll talk more about submitting hours later in this presentation.
Brenda, one question. Can you send us that chart?
Yes, we'll do. Definitely. I can also send the evaluation forms the students need to complete. So after every workshop or after each activity, a student needs to complete an evaluation form. It's usually 3 short questions. I can send that as well. Alrighty. Program expectations for students. So the first bullet point mentions for students to meet with their mentors at least once a month. It could either be virtual, in person, or by phone. However, that's just bare minimum. We are starting to push students and mentors to meet, whether that's every other week. But try to meet more than once a month. And we do encourage students that first initial orientation or meeting with the mentor and student to be in person, and then go from there, whatever works best for you too. If that's maybe 1 month virtual meetings and then the next month meeting in person, totally fine, whatever works best for you too. And then students will be checking in with CCR staff members once a month. That's typically once a month, but we do meet with students more often. Usually every week, we meet with students during our office hours and our school visits. This year, all students will be required to create 1 academic goal and 1 enrichment goal. Enrichment goal can be anything that's not non-academic. So it could be if they want to join a specific sports club, they want to get their driver's license, stuff like that. And each student will work with their mentor to create a goal and an enrichment and an academic goal. And if a student's having trouble with that, we do ask mentors to help students create goals. Again, students are required to attend 12 workshops throughout the whole school year. We ask students to not wait until April to attend 6 workshops. They'll have many opportunities to attend workshops throughout the school year. Most of the workshops will be on Thursdays during our office hours, but we'll send mentors and students calendars about upcoming events. And we do various college tours throughout the school year. We actually have a few in the works for this upcoming fall, and students are required to attend 2 college tours. And for Seniors, juniors, and seniors, we require students to complete at least one scholarship application. Most seniors complete many scholarship applications.
All right, this is me. So mentors, as we will ask you to do the same as the students, to meet at least once a month with your student. And many of you will be in communication much more often than that once a month, especially if you're working with a senior. You might be emailing essays back and forth, things like that. So again, that once a month is a minimum. The next bullet point, communicate with us. And especially if you're not able to get in touch with your student. And as some of our experienced mentors know, it can be tough in the beginning, building the relationship, getting students to respond to you. There's no way very unlikely that they'll respond to every single time you text them. But if you're really having a problem connecting, please let us know. We can't help if we don't know. And then submitting your volunteer hours. We have an online form that you use. At a minimum, submit that once a month, but if you're meeting more often, you can submit that after every time you meet. Again, you can write in that you talked about scholarships, and then that'll count as a touch point for the students. So there will be room on this online form for you to do that. You're all attending the orientation tonight, so yay. And I mentioned we will have other trainings, and then we plan to have a quarterly check-in event, which might have 10 to 15 minutes of programming, and then some time just to share what's going on, concerns, learn from each other. Respect confidentiality of the students and the families. So you're probably going to get to know these students well. Reading their essays, you're going to learn a lot about them. Please don't talk about them with others, especially by name. If there's a nice story that you want to share, you can just say a student. But remember that these are young adults in our community, and just respect their confidentiality. Next slide. If we were in person, you would be signing a mentor agreement for me. And so instead, I will email everybody a link to a virtual form. One of the important things in this agreement is talking about boundaries. Boundaries are for everybody's safety. So you want to think about this in advance, and there are boundaries on any number of topics, but how much you want to disclose about yourself, how long you're willing to talk to your students, what time of night, I won't accept an email or a text or a phone call after 10 p.m. So think about things that you're comfortable with, ask your students what they're comfortable with. Communication, that came up again and again when y'all were talking about good mentors. We will, I think we have a form or something for you to fill out about how you prefer to communicate, and the students will also complete that. You'll probably choose all of these options and get to know each other and what works best. But again, the more upfront you can be, especially in the height of, the essay time, if you're going to be out of town, or if you're not going to check after 10 p.m., just, let the students know, because that's, they should honor that. We ask people to meet in public locations. We do have community centers all throughout Arlington, and I can share those addresses with you and how to set up meeting at those. Brenda also mentioned that she has office hours at the Shell, which is where we would have been meeting tonight in person. And so you're welcome to meet your student there on Thursday nights. But that is something you'll be working out with the student, and it just needs to be in a public location. The next one, number 4, about asking personal questions. So you're going to get to know these students, and they're going to share things with you. So I'm not saying if they bring up something about their family life, you say, no, I'm not allowed to talk about that. Because you are, but you're there as a listener. if your student is saying something that is really concerning to you, please talk to our staff members. You can ask them, how does that make you feel? Or, what happened next? But don't pry, I guess, if that makes sense. All right, next slide. You will be meeting your students in different places, and they will be probably taking public transportation. So that's why if you can meet in public locations, or in the Ballston area or libraries, but we ask that you do not transport the teens in your own car. Social media is a great way to connect with students, but not by following each other. But if you have a funny cat, if you're meeting in person, funny cat video to share with each other, you can, ask them about what video games, what music they listen to. So it's a great way to get to know each other, but not by following each other. This initiating touch thing, maybe a little bit more for younger students, but for older students as well, you can fist bump or whatever you're comfortable with and they're comfortable with, follow their lead. Number 9, so AHC does not endorse you doing things with your student outside of program time. But that's like a little misleading in this context because we want you to get to know each other. So if you want to meet at a museum and go see a museum, or if you want to just have coffee and not talk about college stuff, that's fine. You're building a relationship, you're getting to know each other, you're being a good mentor. So it's just not in a vehicle with each other. And again, if you have any questions, any concerns, please talk to our staff. As Brenda said, they'll also be meeting with the students regularly and get to know them. And we'll have, might have advice for you, or might just be another way for you to listen and share your concerns. I think are there any questions now about any of that? Okay, if nobody, oh, there's Teresa. Perfect. Great.
Just, hi. I know that you touched on a little bit in general remarks. Could you characterize the reality, because the students are in this program, I'm guessing they're a willing participant. Has it generally, other than a few that have ghosted, I get that. But generally, do you find students agreeable and amenable and want to meet and connect, or is it hard?
Yeah, for the most part, our students, a majority of the students are engaged in our workshops, activities with mentors, but we do have a few students who it just doesn't click for them to communicate. For example, they may not send texts on time, or may take them a few days to respond. And then we also have a few students who are dealing with personal situations, and they haven't been able to communicate with mentors or CCR staff members. So we do have a few students that don't really communicate, but we if we see that's a continuous thing, a staff member will meet one-on-one with that student to check in on them to see, hey, I noticed you haven't reached out to your mentor, or you haven't responded to their text. What's going on? Is there any way we can help? And then by that time, the student will get it, like, oh, I haven't reached out to them. So they will, but let's say if they don't, we can create a meeting between student and the mentors to figure out next steps.
And that's also something in the expectations and the first few weeks when you're getting to know each other. You could say, hey, when I send you a text, like, could you give me a thumbs up? Even if you're, way too busy to respond at that point, I'll know that you got it. So you can help them learn what your preferred communication is. Were there other questions? You can raise your hand or just take yourself off mute. All right, well, we'll have time for questions again later. We'll get into some of the nitty gritty of the college stuff.
Alrighty. So for our mentors who have been with AHC or mentors who have volunteered at a different location, feel free to share any tips that have worked well with your mentee or something that you would have done differently. Who would like to share?
I'll share quickly because I've had, and Laura knows, all kinds of experiences. And Teresa, I can relate to what your question was. Some students will jump right in with you. Of the 3 students I had, 2 jumped in. One of those 2, it took a while to get her to respond to a text and not like ignore me. One of them had a lot of problems just that didn't relate to me or to the program, but it was family stuff and stuff going on. And it takes a village. But at the time, Gabby was in Brenda's position, and Gabby and I were texting constantly back and forth, trying to figure out a way to engage this student. And we got her enrolled in Nova, and she went to Nova, and it was a big thing. But just know you're not alone. You could reach out to the staff and they will help you find your way with it. I was at a loss of what to do with that student. It took, and this year I had a very engaged student, but it took until the late spring for her to realize to put me on her favorites. So when her phone was on Do Not Disturb, my text would come through. But I get, that's it. I'm not getting anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Cindy.
I worked with a student this past year who just thought very differently than I did. And it was interesting because I kind of had, if I were going to do something, like he would say, I don't need any help with something. And I would assume that that was in fact true. And sometimes it wasn't true. So it took a while to sort of sort out what was going on with him and how different the expectations were. He was pretty laid back. And so some of the things that he needed to get done, you know, were going on a different timeline than perhaps I would have done it. And also sometimes what the expectation of the people for whom he was doing it was. So that's an interesting process.
Thank you. Alrighty, going back to the slides. Communication. So most of our students prefer texting. That they usually are more responsive during the times of 5 to 10 p.m., but we know 10 p.m. is pretty late in the day. So again, like Laura mentioned, establishing a time frame that works best for you to receive text messages from the student. If you do happen to text a student early in a school hour day, most chances than not, they will not respond. So that I would say the 5 to 7 p.m. window is a great way to catch students to respond. And then relationship building. Avoid asking too many questions, especially any personal questions. Once you're getting to know your student, they may be a little standoffish if they feel as if though they're being interrogated. And I suggest you sharing your high school experiences, what you did in high school, what you would have done differently, your life stories. Our students love hearing about people's career paths, how they got into their current roles, what they did, any lifestyle changes, stuff like that. Our students are really interested in hearing about life stories. So if you're open to it, feel free to share your journey with your student. And then manage your expectations and how the students respond. Again, our students will respond, but we may have some students who will take a few days to respond, or simply just respond to your text by giving it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So just working with that student. And if you feel as though you're not getting enough response from your student, feel free to reach out to me, and then we can work something out and to see if we could come to a middle ground to see if the student maybe can respond a little bit more, express more in their text and stuff like that. And then share any resources you have. Be open-minded about the student and be willing to listen to the student. Sometimes I know a majority of our students are looking for their academic support, but sometimes they need someone just to listen. Maybe they just need a moment to vent or just share something. So please always be listening to our students. Again, reminder, building relationship with teens is hard. They are going through academic stuff, they have many responsibilities, and then social media plays a big role. Now every corner you look, students are on their phones, so building relationships with students is hard. There's no right or wrong way of being there's no one right way to be a mentor. So definitely whatever style works for you, go for it. Being a resource for the student is the most important. And last bullet, please do not give up on the student. Even if the student is not responsive to your outreach attempts, or maybe they change their plans last minute, whether that's changing their commitment to a college last minute, stuff like that, but please do not give up on the student. Some of our students are experiencing some family situations, and they already have pressures from home and we don't want to be that additional pressure. So please do not give up on your student. Alrighty, so our mentor handbook. This is our official handbook for mentors. And it will be updated once the school year starts, but a few tabs to highlight. We have some mentoring tips, how students can stay organized, the application process, timelines. There is a document for a junior timeline, so what they should be doing in the fall, the spring. There's also a timeline for seniors, when they should be submitting their college applications, when they should be applying for scholarships. And if you guys have any resources, whether it's a scholarship database, any other resources, feel free to send it my way, and we'd be more than happy to include it in our mentor handbook. Alrighty, Laura.
Yeah, and we will send a link to that handbook out. So we have a mentor listserv, which y'all are all on now. I encourage you to use it. It happened a little bit last year, but I encourage people to use it more. You know, if you have a question about, does anybody know of any good scholarships, or does anybody know who the counselor is at Yorktown? Because, you know, my students are having trouble reaching their counselor. That's actually a good question to ask Brenda as well, but ask each other. There are some of you that have been doing this for a while that might know answers, or some of you might know just from your own, your children went to APS, or just your own life experience. So you can all be a resource to each other. I do have a Yorktown, Mentors of Yorktown Students smaller listserv, and we might break up some smaller listservs, smaller groupings as well, to get you able to, you know, ask each other questions. And we'll have The mentor check-in form is another great way to communicate with us. That's where you log your volunteer hours, and you can write that you have a question about this or that. Brenda always does read those. I read those as well. I don't have as many answers as Brenda has, but those are great ways to communicate with us. And then again, the office hours that Brenda has mentioned several times, that is going to be at the Shell where we're going to meet. It's most likely going to be on Thursday nights.
Yeah.
I think last year it was from 4 to 7. So it was a pretty big time window, and you could arrange to meet your student there at 4, at 5, at 6. You can let Brenda know that you're coming in case there's a workshop. She can still have a space for you to meet off to the side. If you have questions and your student isn't able to make it, that's fine too. It's just a time to see Brenda in person and get some specific questions answered. Okay. So I've been advertising how we're going to have these events, in-person events, to get everybody started. We are definitely having one on August 10th, which is this Thursday. I mean, weather permitting, I guess I should say, definite weather permitting. Brenda has about 12 students that have said they're going to come, and she will be getting in touch with you, maybe has today, but if not, she will tomorrow, to let you know that your student will be coming. And Cindy, your student is able to come. So we'll see you there a little bit later. But then we're not going to have the event on August 17th. A lot of students had conflicts. So the next one is going to be on September 7th. That Brenda will be making matching people with students on an ongoing basis. So you might get your match before then and not want to wait until September 7th. But these are going to be, you can still join us on September 7th. These are going to be fun, in-person ways to have a little bit of structure around that first or possibly second meeting. And it's hopefully in person and
Yes.
fun. The office hours will start in mid-September. Oh, so we have some volunteers who work with us on essay coaching, and they do work with students individually, and they're going to have a workshop for mentors about how to help students with essay writing. And then the mentor check-in is that kind of informal time to get together. So, and Peter asked, how do we know who our student is? So Brenda is in the process of matching people. I think that all of you, but I can send it out one more time. There's a mentor questionnaire that helps Brenda get to know you some, and the students do a similar questionnaire. So if you don't end up with a student immediately, I still think that you'll get one.
Yes.
Probably have a few more seniors join hopefully soon, and then we'll still be recruiting juniors. So it's an ongoing process.
Alrighty, and thank you for offering your time to volunteer for this upcoming school year.
Yeah, are there any other questions?
I had just a question. I'm just curious what the students need to do to get into this program. Do they go through any sort of process, or do they just sign up? How does that work?
Yes, so most of our students they live in AHA properties, and most of them attended the teen program. So that's the middle school and program for middle schoolers and 9th and 10th graders. And then they transition off to our college and career readiness program. So they do fill out an application, and most of the time it's student interest. It's the student that's interested in joining our program. And we do offer support to a limited, I would say, like 10 students that do not live in AHA properties.
Right, thanks.
I can say also the students are going through their own kind of orientation boot camp this month. And so they're learning what the expectations of the program are, along with a bunch of other resources for them. So I don't know how many students have been participating, Brenda, but
About 20, yeah.
About 20 students have been participating in that. So they're up and running. Yeah, Teresa.
It's
All right, sorry, I have a couple questions. Will you share this PowerPoint with us? Maybe somebody asked that. There's just so much good information in there. It'd be really helpful to have that in addition to the handbook that's coming.
definitely.
you.
Absolutely, that's easy.
Thank you.
I have a question. You just alluded to, if we needed to help our student get in touch with their counselor, Brenda's a good person to ask, like, who's the counselor over there, or to check with the listserv. And it made me wonder, do you ever have situations where a mentor would have reason to reach out directly to the counselor to sort of try to help advocate for the student a little bit? Or is that sort of beyond what you would want to see us doing?
Yeah, no. So mentors will not be able to reach out directly to the counselors. In order for CCR staff members to contact teachers or meet with teachers or counselors, we need a release of information form. And that's signed by the parent that gives us permission to go and talk to the APS staff members. So if you do have a concern about your student and you would like us to notify the counselor, I would be speaking on your behalf.
Okay, that makes sense. And I'm my internet is unstable, so I'm gonna stop talking because I think you're about to lose me.
Yeah, and I'm going to follow up just a little bit on that, and then I see you, Cindy. But a great thing that mentors can do with students is teach them, help them learn to advocate for themselves, because they're with us for this 1 or 2 years, and then they're going to college, and probably, and for them learning how to advocate, how to use the school counseling office, how to know that there are academic counselors and mental health counselors, and just helping them figure out systems is a great way for you to be helpful to them. Cindy?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because one thing that worried me when I started was the FAFSA and the money piece of it. And I didn't want to know if we were getting involved in it, and to let the new people know that the CCR office staff does all the FAFSA stuff, all the applications, all the financial aid piece. So that's not our responsibility. We can ask them if they've made the appointment to meet with Brenda or whoever's doing it, and follow up that way. But we don't touch the money or deal with their money or anything like that.
Right.
Yes, thank you, Cindy, for bringing that up. Yes, so CCR staff members meet one-on-one with the student and the family members to fill out the FAFSA application. We also have FAFSA workshops for the family members too. For some family members, it's their first time hearing about FAFSA, and now that the FAFSA is there's a new application coming out this December, we will be hosting workshops for students and family members.
And our staff are also very helpful in once the scholarship and different information comes back in, like after students are admitted, working with the students and their families to think through those options. So that's another thing that our staff take on. Peter?
Yeah, I had a bit of a strange experience with the first student who was assigned to me, who I did not think should apply for college and sort of but go through either a year of AmeriCorps or sort of an off year, just to make sure that she would find her footing. And I think it's, to what extent are we just pushing the college experience? And she ended up not sort of leaving me as a mentor. I didn't talk to her about these options because I was unsure. I didn't want to seem like I was downplaying the college experience. But I really didn't think that was for her at the time. And I'm wondering to what extent it would be okay after some kind of, obviously some kind of talking with Brenda or something like that, if we feel like the person who is assigned to us is just not, or it might be something where he or she should consider something different, a different or approach to post high school years. I should add, I then got somebody assigned to me who was accepted at UVA and has a free ride and so on. It was a wonderful, and it was just clear that he would be a great candidate for that. But the other one, for all sorts of reasons, I thought was should not be pushed into this kind of stuff. So what's your advice there?
Definitely. I would highly encourage maybe setting up a meeting for all of us to meet. So the mentor student and then a CCR staff member, just to go over the student's plan, goals, career plans, and maybe incorporating options, letting the student know what options are available, but not necessarily telling them, no, they shouldn't go to college, but just letting them be aware of the resources and the opportunities available.
Yeah, I wouldn't, if I may, I would not never have said to her, don't go to college, but just that it might not be the right time. And to even be aware of some of those other opportunities and choices that she could make that might be better suited at that particular moment in her life. So
yeah, definitely. And also this year too, we are trying to provide more resources for trade schools, technical schools, stuff like that.
that's great.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter. Sam?
Yeah, a quick question about something that was mentioned in passing earlier. I think you mentioned something about signing up for a spot at one of the AHC properties to do the tutoring. I was curious if you could kind of walk through that process. Like, do we have to reserve a study room, or can we just show up and take, I'm just curious a little bit about that.
It's a little bit in between those two things. So all of our centers have they have teen program, and that's for mostly the middle and high school students at some point in the week. And so if Gates of Boston, that's a very centrally located one for our students. If they have teen program on Monday night and Wednesday night, they might have space for you to grab a desk, and they might not, and we'll just have to, so I think, and then on Tuesday and Thursday night, for the most part, those are open, but then there's an event once a month on Thursday night. So it's going to be a very, we'll have to work out the details. I will have a list of all of our centers and then connect you with the staff person there. And then, y'all can say, okay, Tuesday nights, and that's going to be our plan for the year, or every other Thursday night, we'll work it out from there.
Got it. Thank you.
Are there other questions? Anything in the chat? Is that Kathy?
Yes, Kathy.
You're still on mute though.
Trying to unmute myself. I just thought of one, and do we see their report cards or their PSAT test results? Or, I mean, just reflecting on what Peter was saying, I mean, there's some, is that appropriate for, I'm used to the teen program where we would see the grades. And I'm wondering if in this program that's relevant.
Yes, so for CCR, we are working on having students share more of their standardized test scores and grades. So to answer your question, I'll get back to it. We don't have a defined answer just yet. I'll be working with Malenka to figure out our action plan in regards to students sharing grades and standardized scores with mentors. For now, in previous years, I believe students have, if a mentor has asked, hey, can I see your grades? Students will pull up their student view, which is a system that APS uses to track grades. But Malink and I will work through creating a fine line of students sharing grades and standardized scores with mentors.
Okay.
I just want to thank you for that, Brenda, because I had one extreme and the other. I had a student that was looking at tier 1 Ivy League schools, and we found out, thank goodness, not too far into the term, that she had like a C average barely. And her test scores weren't, so we had to work towards a different goal kind of thing. But if they're not, and some of the kids don't want to share, and it's a problem. So
All right.
thanks.
Yeah, I'll work with Malenka on creating a fine line of students sharing scores and grades.
One thing that I noticed, and I was frankly really shocked that the counselor hadn't picked up, my students' grades and test scores have a pretty big mismatch. And, very good grades, not good SAT. And I was surprised that the counselor had not said, well, try the ACT, which some kids do better on that than the SAT and vice versa, but also hadn't talked to her about test optional. And frankly, these are the kids that test optional is a thing for. And so I was kind of surprised that that was never raised. And so we've spent some time, talking about, okay, which schools are you looking at and are they test optional?
Great. Go ahead, Evan.
Okay, I have a question that might be a little bit far out or crazy, but let me just ask anyway. So I know that some of what we do is help with essays, whether it's for college applications or for scholarships. I definitely have worked with students, and that was all we talked about was essays. And now there are these apps, these AI apps that write college essays, ChatGPT. I don't know if you've heard about this, that you could say, write an essay for a college application, blah, 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 and it'll just kind of do that. And I was just wondering, is there any buzz about that, or are you all hearing that that's in the schools already?
I have heard about, yes, but our students, I haven't heard it from on our students end, but I do see it becoming popular within APS all throughout, but our students haven't mentioned it yet, but I have heard of it.
Okay, I certainly won't mention it, but yeah, I'm just curious if the students are going to bring it up.
I think we'll definitely ask our essay coach, the leaders of that workshop, to talk about that. I think that'll be important. I think one of the things that maybe we got left out of the slideshow is that Brenda does a newsletter that'll come out every other week. And so if there are very timely topics like that, and we have any answers for you, that's the type of thing that we can put in the newsletter. So I do encourage everybody to read the newsletters, and it'll have good things for you to go over with your students. Peter and Teresa, but Peter first.
I would argue actually a little bit differently from Evan, who just said he would not mention it. To the contrary, I think you should raise it with them. To not mention it makes it seem like this does not exist, but I think to just talk to them about it and what it does or does not, or might and might not do, is much more, would be, from my perspective, a lot more productive than to try to sort of avoid the issue.
Be interesting to hear what they have to say too. Teresa, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a really big question. I just want to share, I was just at a conference with admissions people because of my profession I retired from. I was invited back, and this was a big topic of discussion, and the essay writing workshops will be great for us. And of course, with the students, one takeaway I took, because this was the big topic of discussion, is a number of admissions reps said what students will be hearing is guidance on essays, as in, you can get a really good generated generic essay, maybe write about personalized. Tell us more about you individually, or something that would be distinct from, Rebecca's a very, blah, 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 just a more generic, acceptable. So it's a hot one. So I look forward to the workshop for us on it, because it's happening everywhere, right? Yeah. And I think students, if they struggle, might see it as an easy out, but it's really not. Especially if you're going to go test optional,
Yeah.
which is a great option, that essay becomes so much more important,
I just think they already know about it. The sixth grade girls that I worked with last year, tutored last year, I'm sure they know about it and are playing with it already.
All right.
So we have to be prepared.
Right. I agree. Any other questions?
I might just make a quick comment sort of about maybe another dimension of the admissions essay question having to do with the Supreme Court decision. Maybe our essay coaches will be able to provide some advice on that, but it seems like the essay may be all the more important now that colleges won't be allowed to kind of factor race into their admissions decision. So everything I've read seems to suggest the essay will carry more of that sort of the weight that perhaps the just information about race used to. So I think as much sort of guidance for mentors of seniors about the essay, that can be provided would be really helpful.
Definitely. Thank you for bringing that up, Lynn. Ami and Adrian, who run the essay coaching program, they will be having a training for mentors, I believe, in the middle of September. We don't have a date yet, but they'll be touching on the recent Supreme Court ruling.
All right. I have a question for Brenda. What are you planning to do for the students in terms of ACT and SAT prep? Do you have anything planned for that?
Yes, so some of our students now are actually planning to take the ACT, I believe August 23rd. So each student has received an SAT workbook and a graphing calculator. They either meet with their mentors to go over test prep, and then throughout the school year, we'll have group SAT sessions. And then we'll also invite Jason from the College Action Plan to facilitate SAT workshops for students.
Great. And I actually thought of think of one more thing that we didn't have on the list, but talking a little bit about students' grades. And if you notice that your student is struggling academically in anything, several times last year, Brenda or a mentor reached out to me, like, can you find a volunteer to help my student with AP physics or whatever that is. So hopefully the people that did that asked their student first if they would want a tutor. But if you find that your student is wanting that kind of specific academic support and you're not able to provide it, which we don't expect you to, then you can reach out to me and I can try to find a tutor to help them with a specific topic.
Oh, and I'd like to also add off topic, but if at any point when you meet in person with your student, if they mention they are lacking supplies, whether it's a notebook, pencils, all the above, feel free to let me know and CCR can provide supplies for the students. Sometimes our students may be a little timid to reach out and be like, hey, I actually need a few supplies. But if you do catch them, say something, or just have them advocate for themselves, be like, hey, reach out to Brenda, maybe she has some supplies. We'll be more than happy to give supplies to the students.
All right, well, if there are not any further questions, we can call it a night. We really look forward to seeing some of you on Thursday night, and Brenda will be in touch about that. And
Yes.
she'll be in touch in general about the matches, and I'm going to stay on right now. So if you have any questions and want to ask at the end, that's fine. But otherwise, we'll sign off. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here tonight.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank
Brenda,
you.
Bye.
while I have you, I just spoke to Laura earlier. 5:30 is tough for me. So is it okay for 6:30 on the 10th?
Definitely, that works. Yes. So Danny, I'm planning to pair you up with Danny. She will be there on Thursday.
Okay, and she knows
Yep.
I'm coming later. Okay.
Yes.
It's not for anything else other than I'm grandma doing. So we have a
Aw.
4-year-old, and I get the 4-year-old after she gets out of school. Then that's my time. So we had to rearrange things today, and then the storm hit. I had to get her at school early, so it was just a lot of jumping around. But okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll plan on being at the Shell at 6:30 then on Thursday.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
so if you
Perfect.
want to email me any information so I know before I meet her, or I'll just meet her then, or how's that gonna work?
Yes, I can email you a little information about Danny. Her grade, well, she's a senior. She's very active in CCR. She attends all of our workshops.
Okay,
Yes, she is a policy nominee, so she has applied for the policy scholarship. She's
Okay.
currently working on her application. Let's see, she is interested in going into the medical field. She's not entirely sure what profession exactly within the medical field, but she is interested in the medical field, and she is interested in staying in Virginia for college, either George Mason, I believe, or James Madison are her top schools.
Oh, perfect. Like, I don't want to keep you. I know you're on overtime now, but Rahan is texting me while this is going on, and my daughter's texting me. Did you find out if you could do 6:30? I'm like, yes, I can do 6:30. And Rahan is texting me, are you home? Yes, you're home. You got home okay? Yeah, you're home okay.
Aw.
And
That's so
Cindy,
great, Cindy.
Yeah.
Cindy,
All
thank you
right.
so much for sending the updates on Rahan, the scholarship she's been receiving. Thank you,
She
thank
texted
you.
me, oh, I got a $9,000 a year scholarship, renewable for 4 years. Oh, really? Oh, I
Amazing.
have too much scholarship money. Oh, okay, really?
Wow.
Amazing.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
but Tech gave her some, I forget the name of it. It's some kind of special scholarship. She has to have a 3.0 average and 15 credits a semester. And $9,000. She's got a free ride basically. So
Mhm.
I'm trying to get her to talk to financial aid to see if she can keep some of the money banked there, like for expenses, for books and things, even though it's not going to it. I said, and up your board money, get a better meal plan. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
You know, for it, that she should go with a little meal plan. So we're working on it. But it was funny. She was texting during the meeting.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
my mom picked me
awesome.
up. I got home early.
That's so great.
I'll look
Thank
for you
you.
tomorrow. Thank you.
Perfect.
All
Thank you,
right.
Cindy.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right.
Awesome.
I think it was good.
Yes. Oh, we're still recording.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how to stop that, but I will not share the whole thing with everybody.
Uh-huh.
Leave.
Perfect.
Stop recording.
All righty. So many new faces.